Welcome to the Business Spotlight Series. Again, I'm Rick Plaskett, a certified business and leadership coach here in Columbus, Ohio. And today I have a really fun guest. In fact, this is probably the first time that I've interviewed anybody. And when on this particular market, and when I say the name of his company, you're going to understand. So today, my guest is Shannon Keeran, and he is the owner and he's also the founder of 21 Martinis.
Hi,
Let that
Rick.
sit in.
Great to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So today we're going to talk to Shannon a little bit about his business, some of his best practices, and get a peek into what it's really like to run and operate a business that is kind of just getting started here. If this is your first time on the channel, be sure to like and subscribe so you get further notifications of conversations with other business owners just like Shannon. So Shannon, welcome and thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, Rick.
Yeah. So listen, for our audience, let's get started with telling us a little bit about this business and how you got started in it.
Well, I tell you, Rick, it was about 9 years ago. I flew out to Vegas. I got in really, really late one night, and I always go to the Bellagio, and I always go to the same little bar in there called Club Privé. And this particular night, I asked the bartender, who had become a good friend of mine, Angelo, to pour me a drink to wake me up. And honestly, I thought he would just make me a Red Bull and vodka, but he made me this espresso martini that just blew me away. And I said, Angelo, this is so great. We're going to bottle this one day. And over the course of the next 5 years or so, I continue to go to Vegas 6 or 7 times a year and drink his espresso martini. And then the pandemic hit in 2020. And during that period, I read an article at home that said in-home alcohol consumption is up 600%. And I thought that would be a pretty good time to launch a new alcohol brand. And so I picked up the phone, I called Angelo and I said, listen, I want to bottle that espresso martini that you make me when I'm in town. And that's really how it got started. We got started in January of 2021, took a full year for development and building our brand and our website and finalizing the formula. We ended up launching that New Year's Eve, actually in Las Vegas. And so, we're 3.5 years in the market now and doing really, really great. And so it's every day is a new day and every day is really and brings new exciting things. So yeah, it's going really, really well.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that background on us. So for our audience, give us an idea of the ownership structure. Are you a solo owner? Do you have outside investors?
Yeah,
What's it look
so
like?
so when I started 21 Martinis, it's really important to me to make sure that Angelo had a piece of this, right? I mean, it was really his formula. And what ended up happening, Rick, is when we began the development of it, it cost about the same amount to develop one product as 5 products. And so, I called Angelo back and said, Angelo, tell me about your other flavored martinis. And so it was important that he had a part of the company. So
Mhm.
I began the company myself and capitalized it myself, but I had 3 really good friends that were just begging to throw some money at it. They loved the idea. They had been to Vegas with me. They knew Angelo personally. And so, we kind of let them in as minority partners. And after a couple of years that we continued to hear that from other folks that were really just interested in our brand and loved our brand and knew the product. So we got to a point where I just decided to let some other folks come in and not continue to just capitalize it myself. And so we did that. We brought in a couple other people that both Angelo and I already had long-term relationships with, and so that we just were adding more people to the team really. And it wasn't until just this year where we kind of sat back and decided, let's go out and do a really big raise because we can continue to grow 21 at this scale and at this pace and do it over the next 10 or 12 or 14 years or whatever. Or we could throw in a bunch of money at it right now and just try to expand rapidly. And so we decided to do that. And so we really have just finalized and closed our first funding deal, outside of just knowing people who wanted to invest in the company. And so we put together a package. I shared it with a couple people. It took us really about 2 days for somebody to look at it and say, I want to be part of 21 Martinis. And so we just did a $5 million raise and
Wow.
just closed that in the last 2 weeks. And so, yeah, really, really excited because that's more money than we've had to put into it to this date. And we've launched in 36 states and we've sold 40,000 cases. And so now being able to inject more cash than what we've already put in is really, really exciting for us.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about the role that you're currently playing in the business, Shannon.
Well, I wear a lot of hats, Rick. I am co-founder and CEO, which makes me, also our national sales manager. It makes us our key account manager. It makes me, our production manager. And so, um, you know, one of the reasons for this raise is for me to hire some great people. And so I just have hired a national sales manager to really come in and relieve me of the everyday sales functions that have to take place in an organization this big. And we've got 12 salespeople out in the market. And so he's really helping, relieve me of some of that, management duties that I had with managing all of our sales team and allowing me to do some other things that are really, really important for growth and expansion.
Awesome. Awesome. So take a look at your typical week, not the week that you spend in Vegas, but a typical week. And how would you, as you said, you're wearing many, many hats. Some of those are operational and some of those are strategic and vision. And given that you've just earned your funding for this rapid growth that you want to do, how would you break down percentage wise the amount of time that you're working operationally in the business versus building that vision and the plans to get to the future working on the business?
Yeah, probably 50% of my time is still being day-to-day operations, whether that's, working on, production or forecasting or responding to 1,000 emails that I get a week, right? So a lot of it is that, but after the raise, it's allowed us to do a couple of things. Is hire not just a national sales manager, but some other key employees in some expanding markets. We've recently launched in Arizona, and we need to have a full-time rep there. We need to have a full-time rep in New Jersey that we just expanded to. We've just opened up in Texas, and so that will require a couple reps down there. And so a lot of my time right now is interviewing those people and trying to find the right fit for us. But the second piece is really sitting back and looking at our marketing campaign and just doing a total rehaul on that. And so part of that has been interviewing marketing firms to try to figure out who do we fit best with and who can really help take us to the next level from a marketing perspective. And so in the last couple of weeks, a lot of my time has been spent doing that, but every single day, I spend some time on market expansion and whether that's finding a regional restaurant chain or a regional grocery store or reaching out to, Target or Kroger or Walmart or some big national chains as well. That's where really we get a lot of growth and expansion. And so every single day, I'm doing a little bit of that as well. And then the whole, it's not just managing our sales teams, but we now have 19 distributors throughout the country who some manage one market, some manage multiple for us. But it's always making sure we have programming in place and incentivizing their sales teams and offering, special discounted pricing for volume buys. And so there's a lot of moving parts in every single market, and every single market is different because the alcohol laws and the tax structure are different in every single market. And so there's no line pricing in this, right? It's everything is its own specific market. So a lot of my time is spent with that as well.
So let's dig in just and share with the audience a little bit. I know that when it comes to alcohol sales, you are correct. Every single state, every single county has slightly different areas of focus and rules and regulations and laws. You also shared with me when we were talking earlier that marketing is more about the distributors and some of the direct wholesalers. Give us an idea of where your marketing targets are and what's working for you right now.
Yeah, so because of it is alcohol, we can't sell direct to any retailer or consumer. And so we do only sell to those wholesalers. And spending as much time with their team as possible is really, really important. You know, when you are working with a wholesaler in a particular market, they're not just focused on 21 martinis as much as we'd like for them to be, but they've got a portfolio of 20,000 SKUs with a lot of different suppliers and a lot of them that are a lot bigger than us, right? And so making sure that we get as much attention as we can is really important. But from a more traditional marketing perspective, for us, it's having relevant social media. It's having a relevant, web page. It's driving people to our web page to order our product online that gets shipped directly from one of our wholesalers to their front door. It's making sure that when people go to Google and they put in, cocktails at home or espresso martinis, that we want to make sure 21 is in the forefront of all of those searches. It's paid social media ads. It's geofencing. If you walk into a liquor store tonight, Rick, and you happen to pull up Instagram, we want to make sure that you're immediately seeing an ad for 21 martinis. And so there's a lot of components to marketing. Now, for us, the best way to sell 21 martinis and to get people introduced to it is to do in-store demos and tastings. And so we want to make sure if you've not been exposed to 21 martinis and you're going into a liquor store somewhere, that you get an opportunity to taste our product. And so we schedule hundreds of those every single month across the country in different markets. And so look, I want to have 1 million followers on our social media platforms, but I'd rather have 100 or 1 million people that got to taste our product when they walked into a store. And that's what's become really successful for us in growing and getting brand recognition for 21 martinis. Is it's cliche. It's all throughout our industry, and people say liquid to lips, but there's a lot of truth in that. And getting people to try our product has converted a lot of consumers into brand loyalists for 21 martinis.
Absolutely. Amen to that. And I love that from, what was it, to the lips?
Liquid to the lips.
Liquid to the lips. I love that. That should be a great marketing phrase, mantra to do. Now, when you're looking for marketing support, and you mentioned a diversity of stuff from social media, Google, chat, geofencing. I'm sure that you've got something in there with AI marketing as well. Are you looking at one resource to help you grow in all of those areas, or are you carving out multiple that specialize in each of those niches?
There's we've not been able to find a one-stop shop, if you
Mhm.
will. There are great agencies who specialize in SEO, search engine optimization, where we make sure that if they're going to Google or they're going to Bing or any search engine, that they manage that really well, and that 21 Martinis becomes the very first thing that they see when we look for a variety of keywords like espresso martini, like at-home
Mhm.
cocktails, like cocktails for parties and things like that. Um, but then there's another group that I use that she manages our influencing team. And so it's important for us that we want to have influencers in about 16 major metropolitan areas across the United States that we're really trying to hit and grow really fast. And then we'll spread from there, right? But in each of those markets, we're going to have 4 or 5 influencers. And so I've got one person who manages that, and a person who manages our organic social media, um, somebody who manages our email, because this is what they're great at. And you can hire agencies that are representing that they're great at all of those things. But we've hired multiple agencies that are really great at one specific thing and let them focus on that. But it's also really important to me, Rick, that all of those people, they really work together, and it's
Mhm.
really kind of created one team of marketers that are all part of Team 21 Martinis, even though they work for their own organization.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So now let's fast forward and look to what's to come next. You've already shared that you've got the funding and you were looking at accelerated rapid growth for the next several years. I'm kind of curious on what's been your approach to goal setting. And let me set the stage on this question a little bit because the goal setting is, there's kind of two processes here. There's a whole lot of times where people say, hey, I know I can get five, so my goal is five. Okay. Others are sitting there saying, okay, if I know how to get five, that's not a goal. Let's just put it on the to-do list and get it done. So if your goal is, say, 5x, there's got to be some sort of growth there. There's a piece of you don't know what you need to get to that 5x. What's your philosophy on setting those goals?
You know, this was my first beverage endeavor. I'm a serial entrepreneur, but this was the first one. And so coming into it, I had pretty lofty goals because I thought it was going to be a lot easier than it's become. And so now being in this for a couple of years, those goals have become a little bit more realistic. And so,
Mm-hmm.
we have been able to launch 36 markets in our first 3.5 years, which is that's a really strong number. Um, but trying to increase or double our sales every single year for the next couple of years that's kind of a goal for us,
Okay.
and we're going to do that a couple of different ways, and one of those ways is by having a more comprehensive marketing campaign. um, one of our goals for fourth quarter this year is to launch the European market and really to take 21 Martinis and make it a global brand and not just a domestic brand. And so now that we've got all the development done and we've got a lot of the marketing done, adding new things like that become a lot easier to accomplish because a lot of the expense to do those has already been paid from setting up the domestic markets that we have here. And so when we sit down and we talk about goals, I include all of our team. I want to I
Mm-hmm.
in the state of Ohio, I want to get the input from our Ohio sales reps that out there in the market every single day, and the same thing from Nevada or from Tennessee or from New York or New Jersey. And so, when we set our goals, everybody's included. And that does two things is it gives me a really good idea of really where we should be. But even more importantly for me is that it gives me an instrument to hold them accountable to. And so when we sit down and we set a goal and they've agreed to this goal, then that's what I expect for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's really important for me is to hold people accountable for what they represent that they can bring to the table. And so that's kind of how we sit and do it. And it's a moving target, Rick, to be honest with you, because we may set a goal in one state, and then all of a sudden we'll pick up a huge retailer out there that has 100 stores. Now we've hit that goal pretty easy, right? And so it's time to kind of step back and say, okay, we got 6 months left in 2025. Now what's our more realistic goal? And so it's kind of a changing number all the time, but
Mm-hmm.
it's I have 14 people who work with me, and I have none that work for me, and that's my approach to business, and they all feel like they're part of the team, and that's kind of the atmosphere that we try to set here at 21 Martinis.
Super. And you've just hit the perfect segue into the next section. And that is those 14 people that are working with you and the goal that you have of 2x growth every single year looking to the future. How would you describe your leadership style? And do you see it changing over the next 2, 3 years?
No, I mean, my leadership style is, look, I want to hire people that are responsible and do what they say that they will do, and I'm going to hold them accountable for that. But I'm not going to call them every day and ask them what they sold. That's just not who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So, the other thing that I've been able to learn, Rick, over the course of being in business for myself for over 20 years now is, I mean, I've learned a ton of lessons, right? But the most important thing for me to know is those things that I don't know. And for all of those things I don't know, hiring people who know way more about that than I do. And so I got into alcohol sales, but I didn't really know anything about it. What I learned really, really quickly was this is a very heavy relationship driven industry. And we started this company with not very many relationships. And so, I hired a national sales manager that had 27 years of doing this, that had been building those relationships over the course of 27 years. And um, that became really, really important. I don't know anything about social media marketing. And, could I have run an Instagram page? Probably. But for me, again, just knowing that I don't know that stuff and hiring those people and working with those people that's what they're super great at. Um, but when I do that, I expect you to perform too. And um, I think when you have a work mentality of working with people rather than having those people work for me, that actually encourages them they want to hit those goals. They want to be able to perform and to accomplish those goals that they have said that they can accomplish. And so I think if you're over top of them every day and managing them all the time, they're not as excited about performing for you. And so that's my, right, wrong, or indifferent, Rick. That's my management approach. And again, we have great team members who love to be a part of this and are excited every single day and feel like they are making a difference for our company, and not just punching a clock and collecting a paycheck.
That's awesome. So let's go to, you had mentioned, you've got a team already and you're still looking to hire a number of areas, at least in the sales rep areas. Um, Scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the ease and the quality of the candidates that you are hiring in the areas that you want?
It's been super challenging, quite honestly. Yeah, it's become a little easier in the last 6 to 12 months. Our industry has faced some challenges lately, and because of that, there are some people who have unfortunately, lost their jobs or have been laid off, and so now there are some really great industry people out there.
Mhm.
But even before that, it was really tough. It was the pool of applicants that we would get. We got very little that had not just alcohol selling experience, but any sales experience whatsoever. But I'll be honest with you, Rick. There are some people that I've hired because they interviewed great that had no alcohol sales experience, but I was able to train them and teach them to sell the way I wanted them to. And so they hadn't been programmed by a previous supplier or producer, or a wholesaler. And so that's been pretty effective, as well as is really training and teaching the people to do things your way. For me, has been really, really successful for us.
Awesome, awesome. Well, listen, we have certainly covered a lot of ground in our conversation today. And for those of you that are watching, I highly, highly encourage you to save this one and come back a few times, because Shannon has definitely given us a lot of great nuggets in the area of growth and in working with people and not having them work for. I love that concept right there. So listen, as we wrap up, I've got a section here that I call rapid fire questions. Just what's the first thing on top of your mind? You ready for these, Shannon?
Hit me.
All right. Shannon, what's the key to success?
Oh my gosh, that's a tough one. That should have been question number one, Rick. Success can be defined in a lot of different ways. For some people, success is, I'm going to make $1 billion or whatever. For me, success is building our name brand and to be able to create something that never existed before and try to make that a global brand that everybody knows about. That for me is success. And yeah, I mean, money will come with that at some point, and that's great. But to be able to, when Angelo and I get together and we talk and we say, we've started this thing from nothing, we've created this really cool, beautiful looking package and great liquid to create something like that everybody in the world at some point will know about. That's success for me, and that's pretty exciting.
That, that's awesome. That is awesome. Hold, just lost it. There we go. What's a piece of advice that you would give to a business owner?
Again, I think humility is really important, Rick. I think you have to recognize those things that you don't know and add people to your team that are much better at that than you are. And so for me, that's been really, really important, regardless of it was 21 Martinis or any of the other industries that I'm involved in. It's just making sure that you've surrounded yourself with great people. And I think that leads to success.
Next question. What's a book that you're reading now or you've read recently that you would recommend to the audience?
You know, I'm reading Shoe Dog right now, which is a great story about a guy who liked shoes, and he started with not much knowledge and very, very little market share, and he has turned it into Nike. And so this is Phil Knight's story about how he built Nike into what it is. And so that's, maybe one day I'll write a book called Martini Dog,
Ah, there we go.
but it's very relevant and applicable to what I'm doing, and just trying to something that never existed before, and turn it into something that's global. And so I think for me, it's a great book, and it's an easy read, and that's one that I certainly would recommend.
Super, super. Listen, Shannon, if there was one area of your business that you could choose and immediately have it improve overnight, and tomorrow morning it would be exactly where you would want it to be, what is that one area?
Well, I think it's always for us going to be sales, right? I mean, we come in here and we start every day with a goal of selling more and more accounts, and so it's our focus. It's our team's focus. It's my focus when I'm in my office. It's my focus when I was in Las Vegas last week, and going and calling on new accounts. And so, um, you know, with more sales, that makes everything a lot easier, and so, adding as many sales and brand loyalists as we can, that's what's most important.
Awesome. Listen, before we get to the final question of the day, if there's somebody watching this today that wants to get in touch with you, either to be your next best customer for 21 Martinis, or wants to talk to you directly about something that you've shared today, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple ways. They could DM us on our Instagram account, which is XXI Martinis. Again, it's 21 Martinis, but we try to be a little fancy with making it Roman numeral. So XXI Martinis. And I'm happy to receive emails, and would always have cut out time to talk to anybody. Which is just simply Shannon at BEVERAGE.com. And so emails or direct messages, either one are a great way to get a hold of me.
That's awesome. Okay, so here's the last question. Shannon, what do you find most inspiring to you?
What do I find most inspiring? Now, are we still talking about 21 Martinis, or you know?
I didn't limit it.
For me, inspiring is seeing a lot of people working really, really hard to help us be successful. And again, we have great people on our team who, they're not owners of the company. They're just believe in me, and they believe in the message, and they believe in the product, and they work really, really hard to help get us all to this final goal of global awareness and success. And so that's inspiring, to see how hard my people work, even though they are just collecting a paycheck. And but it's more than that. It's family for us. Everybody's on the team, and that's super inspiring for me.
That's awesome. Shannon, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for sharing your journey. And to you, our audience, thank you so much for watching. We've been inspired by listening to Shannon and his story today and his journey, and I'm sure that the next time I talk to him, he's going to be that twofold to tenfold bigger. Folks, make it a great day, and bye for now.
Thanks, Rick.